All right, thank you, and I will now yield to Mr. Burlison for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry I didn't get to see the awesome demo, but I can only imagine what you were demonstrating. But my first question is for you, Mr. Nawabi. Are the cartels using drones or any technology? Are you aware of their activity on the southern border?
Congressman Burlison, thank you for that question. I am personally not aware of specific cases, although I do know in general that much more primitive and simpler drone technology has been reported to be used by border patrol, by drug cartels. The technology that we have is far more advanced in its capability, and to my knowledge, since we've been in business, it has not been in the hands of the cartels.
And do they ever attack our drones?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Congressman.
Mr. Keneally, is that right? I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Got it. All right. My question for you is, a few House Democrat members reportedly wrote to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection last year expressing concerns about that robotic dogs could pose a lethal threat to migrants and Americans. How legitimate is that concern?
Yeah, so the use case where, as I mentioned, we did some testing with Customs and Border Patrol, the use case for the robots at the border is really to collect data. So it's, as I mentioned, you can either look for illegal drug trafficking by adding appropriate sensors to detect for that, or you can have thermal or infrared cameras on the system, which will let you pick up humans or other animals, right, using those thermal signatures. And so the robot is really a detection system which will then actually be used to save lives, right? There's hundreds of deaths every year from people drowning or getting stuck trying to cross the border. And so more information along those lines, I think, could only be beneficial.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you for correcting the record on that. This is a question for each one of you on the panel. You know, regulation stymies innovation. In your business or in your process of development, have you experienced any regulations that you could tell us about that stymie your innovation? And we'll just begin with Mr. Rotting.
Thank you, Congressman. In my experience, our experience as a company for some of the applications that we've developed and targeting systems for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, we're on a current contract. I think CBP's done really well with having multiple different contracts that kind of cover agile frameworks and deployment of software solutions. And that gives them the ability for us to come up with a concept to design and deploy something very effective to the frontline operators when they need it, rather than the stovepipes of some other potential procurement processes.
So you're saying the current setup works. There's no regulation that's been stymieing you?
In the way that we're operating now for CBP under the current place, I would say that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Congressman Burlison, yes, we have experienced several regulatory requirements and hurdles. One that comes to mind right now that could actually benefit from hopefully your support is the Federal Aviation Administration, because the deployment and adoption of drones really requires its integration with the airspace, the national airspace. The UAV that you saw that flew on the stratosphere, we are actively now pursuing the certification of that UAV, similar to a commercial airliner, but it's a very different airplane. It has no humans in it, there's no fuel in it on board, there's batteries and solar cells and electric motors. So that's an area that United States, and we are actually way ahead of our adversaries. And making that easier and going faster would help. Similar to the drone on my left, Quantix was initially developed for agriculture industry. You can do inspections of power lines, utilities, railroads, bridges,
yeah.
All sorts of infrastructure in agriculture, but you cannot today fly this unless you're in a specific test markets beyond visual line of sight. So if you cannot see the drone, then you can't fly it. And a lot of these applications require these drones to safely, and the technology exists for them to operate beyond visual line of sight. And that's another area that, again, FAA is involved, and they should be, but helping the regulations to address the current technology advancement and the pace by which the technology is advancing is really critical. And to not only help us as a country, but to allow us to stay ahead of our adversaries and to enable our domestic law enforcement agencies to be able to use these effectively as well.
Thank you.
In closing, I want to thank you all.